Webinar is being live.
Yes, we are live on YouTube.
All right, hang on.
That's very funny.
Okay, go ahead. I can talk now. These people.
Well, the Omega variant, which I'm sure is coming, will probably be transferred through sound waves. So you never know.
And on that note, I want to welcome everybody to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. As Ken described this show one time, you're being brought into an intimate conversation of a speakeasy. And I do love that way to describe the show. I want to welcome everybody in the YouTube chat. I want to thank everybody that's been downloading the podcast. Yesterday was a great day, so please keep it up. Keep downloading it. Keep giving those good reviews. It means the world to us. You can find us also at Ben's newsletter, benstein.substack.com. And I have to say the views on them are amazing. The click-throughs on our Ben's email is amazing, and we will be offering some sort of gift with The Gift of Peace, Ben's wonderful book of the many wonderful books he's written. We are joined tonight by Ben the Bear Boychuk, managing editor of AM Greatness. Ben Boychuk.
Pleasure to be back.
God bless you, Ben.
From
Likewise, Ben.
Big Bear. Does
Bear,
anybody
right
get that reference?
Big Bear, isn't that from the Great Outdoors?
Big Bear.
Is that Big Bear right near Lake Arrowhead?
It's from Defending Your Life with which I know Ben Stein hasn't seen, but it was Torn. That's how he said it, Big Bear. Anyways, thank you. Nobody gets my references. And of course, from the Media Action Network, Mr. Blackroom himself, Ken LaCourte. Good to see you, Ken.
What is the Black Room?
Well, introduce Ben first.
And of course, this show wouldn't be complete without actor, writer, saint, sinner, provocateur, lover, grandfather. Ben, don't ruin it. Lawyer, economist, mathematician, statistician, mathematician. But of course, most importantly, Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
With these hands, you cannot imagine what I did this afternoon. You just can't imagine. They said it could not be done. Brain surgery on a Democrat. I probed and probed and probed. And there it was, like a little pea hiding behind a dress of someone from the LGBTQ movement.
L'chaim. And on that note, do you want to tell people quickly, Ken, what the Black Room was?
No.
Okay. Google it. Ken LaCourte is a fascinating man.
Okay. Here's an example of how horrible the media is. So flashback, I don't know, a handful of years, I was a medium high, fairly high muckety muck at Fox News. I ran the .com. The one of our vice presidents had been fired because he was traitorous to the cause and was always spinning himself out instead of the company. And so he told the weenie at Gabe Sherman, who ended up writing a book on Fox, and Roger Ailes, and who I forget what thing he was, that there was a black room up on the 23rd floor, and that's where all the really nefarious stuff came out. And he just made it up. It was just he just made it up. Literally the 23rd floor. Coincidentally, was which I ran. Most of that was for FoxNews.com, and the irony, of course, is that it's one of these like totally modern offices where you can't even pick your nose without all your employees. It's like all glass on glass pods and whatnot. It was a later.
It's a feng shui room. It was the feng shui floor at Fox.
And you kind of but it sounded good. And if you type Black Room Fox, you will see thousands of hits because everybody else in the media, so if you're at BuzzFeed, all you have to do is say, oh, and the supposed Black Room at Fox where they did all these nasty things, et cetera, down to literally when they made a movie, the Showtime miniseries on Fox News, they had a guy come up and he hit the wrong floor on the elevator at Fox, and it opened up It's like frickin' Beirut. It's like sparks flying and concrete pillars off to
Kung fu
the side.
fighting. Was there kung fu fighting?
The picture of it is just amazing. And the guy walks there and he sees like 4 guys on a computer, and there's the guys at Fox who are doing all the nasty stuff. It was a terrific example of the American media just being.
Well, thanks for ruining that great image.
Oh,
man.
God,
you ruined
I'm
it for all of
really
us.
sad
But
now.
speaking
I'll find
of
a picture of the black room for you.
But speaking of Beirut and that region, Ben Boychuk, let's go to Afghanistan.
Which is nowhere near Lebanon, but
Yes, I know.
yes, but
It's in the Middle East, but go on.
that part of the world.
It's a lot closer to Lebanon.
If you could read the story quickly, and then we will get to Ben.
So the U.S. is sending 3,000 troops back to Afghanistan to evacuate mostly civilian personnel from the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. And the reason is the Taliban are taking over the country, which was perfectly predictable and predicted. The U.S. Embassy, according to the New York Times today, sent the latest in a series of alarming alerts, urging Americans to, quote, leave Afghanistan immediately using available commercial flight options. The State Department spokesman, Ned Price, peddled a whole line of baloney in a press conference yesterday, saying, as we've said all along, the increased tempo of the Taliban military engagements and the resulting increase in violence and instability across Afghanistan is of grave concern. We've been evaluating the security situation every day to determine how best to keep those serving at our embassy safe. Let me be very clear about this. The embassy remains open. But he also goes on to say, this is not abandonment. This is not an evacuation. This is not a wholesale withdrawal. This is not 1975 Saigon with Americans hastily being airlifted from the roof.
I love how he goes to Saigon, Ben Stein, but not Beirut, and which would be the most logical place to go to as far as watching an embassy falling, an American embassy, because of blunders made by a certain.
Saigon is close enough.
Well, yeah.
Saigon had the helicopter at the top.
I just like going with Jimmy Carter.
Just blew up.
Ben Boychuk brought up Jimmy Carter today. Ben Stein, the foreign, I don't want to call it diplomacy or intelligence that this administration has with what they've done with Afghanistan. Obviously, Trump set in motion something with the Taliban with making a peace deal. But there's a big difference between the Biden regime coming in and these jackets. Well, what was the Taliban going to do? What is the Scorpion going to do, Ben Stein?
Yeah, this was 100% predictable, and the idea that it's not a evacuation or a running for cover or running for your life is 100% BS, and it's just shameful that we went in there to get rid of the Taliban, and we're now we're leaving with our tail between our legs, despite having spent a huge amount of money, an unbelievable amount of money, and despite having spent a lot of lives, a lot of American blood, or a lot of Afghans who trusted us, who joined up with us, who fought with us on our side. They're going to be caught. There'll be plenty of them will be left over, and they're going to be tortured and murdered, and their families tortured and murdered. And it's just disgraceful. And if Mr. Biden did not see this coming, what's the name of the Secretary of State? Blinken, and nod or something like that. If he didn't see this coming, if Mr. General Austin did not see this coming, they are really idiots. I mean, not just foolish, not just short-sighted, idiots.
Brilliantly said. And Ben Boychuk, I want you to read the quote of Trump and the difference, because Trump laid out the rules, Ben Stein. And there is a difference between when Trump said something. Remember, this is a guy that got us back hostages. This is a guy that did the Abraham Accords. This is the guy that really the world believed, that had 2 phases with China of brokering deals. And Ben Boychuk, what was the quote?
If you threatened an American, if you scared an American, and certainly if you hurt an American, we would bring all American power to bear to make sure that we went to your village, to your house. And I think they might have believed him. And I think that the Biden administration has given them every reason not to believe that pledge, because Another interesting detail from the New York Times story: American negotiators are trying to extract assurances from the Taliban that they will not attack the U.S. embassy in Kabul.
Well, of course,
if they manage to
ridiculous.
take over the country's government, if they ever want to receive foreign aid.
Begging,
So now,
Like,
Ben
that's
Stein.
on the table.
Begging, begging them not to
uh,
touch the embassy, Ben Stein.
We supposedly went in there because the Taliban had been sheltering the people who did 9/11, and we're supporting them and giving them every kind of aid and comfort. And now, roughly 20 years, almost exactly 20 years to the
20
day
years and 4
later,
weeks.
to the day, we are leaving with our tail between our legs. And this is the most richest, by far, most well-armed country in the world by a million miles, the United States. And we are leaving because of the Taliban, which is at most several thousand with trucks and machine guns.
Who have taken over 3 providences.
I don't know. I mean, Afghanistan's kicked the asses of both the Soviets and us. They got something going on.
I know they're very, very
They
tenacious.
have the Ark of the Covenant there.
That's right. They're very tenacious. They're extremely, extremely tenacious. But let's remember, the Russians left in large part because they were getting a lot of casualties, really, really a lot, and the Russian people were upset about it. I don't think the American people have been demanding that we leave Afghanistan in any way whatsoever reminiscent of the way we were demanding that we leave Vietnam. So, I agree. We should not have been there in the first place. It was a mistake.
So there are 2 issues in Afghanistan, it seems like. One is the manner in which we left. Now, I remember when we were pulling down troops in Iraq and we were getting on an exit path, and I had been on the ground there as a journalist, and I saw I knew the guys who would have their families tortured, and it was tough to think of. So one is the manner in which we leave. The other question is, should we still be there after 20 years? It is literally 20 years in 4 weeks from yesterday. If we can't fix Afghanistan in 20 years, does it not make sense at a certain point for us to say it's unfixable?
Well, maybe we should say, was it a MacArthur or I forget. One of them said, there's no point in fighting a war that you don't intend to win. So if we're there, we should be fighting it to win it. And as I say, I don't think it's inconceivable that we could have won it. There are an awful lot of Americans who are willing to go and fight.
But not with 3,000 or 5,000 troops.
No, not with I. You're
and
totally
that's what we
right.
had.
No, it should be way more. It should be way more than that.
But what's a win in Afghanistan, though?
A win in Afghanistan is all about trust in America.
No. How does one say that we've won the war in Afghanistan when
they
don't even have roads in all of Afghanistan?
That's a very good point. Well, that one way is that we're not leaving with our tail between our legs from the U.S. Embassy. We're not having people at the U.S. Embassy airlifted out of there in terror. That's
begging them not to.
Begging the Taliban, telling them we're going to bribe them if you don't kill all the people at the embassy. I agree. You're totally right. Ken, you're absolutely right. The place is a barbarous wasteland. It's not like seizing Berlin, and therefore that's the end of Nazism. It's a barbarous wasteland. Very hard to tell if you've won. It's very easy to tell when you've been humiliated, and we have been humiliated. And I think the Russians were humiliated, and I think that had a lot to do with the fall of the Soviet Union. So I don't want us to be humiliated. It does not look or feel good for people whose children are buried at Arlington National Cemetery.
Okay, so Ben Boychuk, I got to go to you because I can't, there's sometimes when Ben Stein says something that I sort of get the chills on. And when Ben Stein says the word humiliation with America, that's the gospel, Ben Boychuk.
So, yeah, and I think there's another element here, Ben, that you might have mentioned in passing earlier, and it's certainly something we should address because there's a parallel here with our defeat in Vietnam and our abandonment of Cambodia, which is that over the past 20 years, there have been literally tens of thousands of Afghans who have helped the United States. And as with, in Vietnam and as with Cambodia, a lot of those people are in danger of being left behind and they and their families killed. we had a piece at American Greatness last week by a guy named Chad Robichaux, who was a Marine and I believe a CIA contractor who had done quite a few tours in Afghanistan. And he writes about how a lot of veterans are just sick to death about the way the US government right now is leaving these people behind. So they're raising their own money to help get these people out of the country. Because once again, you know, after years and years and years of trying to pacify and democratize a country that has no tradition or history or temperament for Jeffersonian democracy, we're leaving these people to their fates, and that's wrong.
Well, if I may say so, they have no tradition of Jeffersonian democracy.
Right. That's
sure.
right.
That's for sure. But I'm not sure how many countries in the whole world have that tradition.
Very few.
But there was a time when there was a king of Afghanistan, and it was not a terror state. It was not a state in which everybody was in terror of the Taliban. That came recently with the fundamentalist Muslim takeover of the country. That is not the same as what there was before that. We don't expect to return to Jeffersonian democracy there or here, for that matter. That's the really scary part. Is it seems to be gone from here too. So what we could expect is not to betray these people, not to have their families tortured, and not to have parents and grandparents sitting next to their children's graves in the Arlington National Cemetery weeping. That we could expect.
I think we spent a lot of time and money and resources, especially during the George W. Bush administration, trying to, you know, make that place into something approximating a democracy, and that was complete folly. And so what we seem to have forgotten, and I think this is something that we forgot after World War II, because we so successfully turned around Germany and Japan, is that, you know, that sort of thing is really not what warfare should be for. We could have gone in there, smashed the hell out of them. You know, there used to be a tradition of punitive strikes. You know, we didn't have to do anything other than beat the shit out of them until they cried uncle. And instead, we decided to occupy the place. We thought we could establish a government there that would be stable and friendly to us. And that was never the case, and it never succeeded, and it never was going to succeed.
But I wonder if they ever cry uncle. I mean, these people are unbelievably tough and resilient and unbeatable, I think. But to keep them from taking over the U.S. embassy, that it seems is not impossible. I mean, for God's sake, the embassy is a small part of the country. The big cities are a small part of the country. Surely they could have been defended. And if it takes more troops to do it, then let's have more troops do it. For Christ's sake, this administration is throwing trillions of dollars at broadband. I don't even know what broadband is. And then they're saying that's going to help Black kids in the inner city become as well educated as graduates of Princeton. If they're that stupid and that wasteful about money, maybe they could spend some money on a dignified cause, like not letting people who trust in America be tortured to death.
You know, what broadband is.
But Ken, he raises Ben. One of my favorite things that Ben said about a week and a half ago is that the media is the fourth branch of the government.
Oh, by far.
I like to call it the fifth column, but that's just.
But the reason I bring that up is because they are doing what they're doing is getting people killed. Because as Ben said, that if the Biden administration didn't see this coming,
either idiots or traitors.
That's exactly right. And the fact that this is finally coming out today, Ken LaCourte, in the New York Times, and not weeks ago. This hasn't been going on for a week or two. This has been going on for months. You don't take over a province in a day and a half. They're at number 3 and they're going for number 4. That the media has not reported on this is absolutely.
No, I actually think that it has only just occurred to the Biden administration that Kabul is in real danger of falling.
That is true. We should really kiss our asses goodbye. I mean,
But-
or we should think. I mean, something serious has to be done. I mean, if that's true, then these are the dumbest people ever.
Well, don't
to be in
forget,
the
Ben
White House.
Stein. Don't forget, Joe Biden, when he was in the Senate, wanted nothing more than to appease the Soviets, right? And you know, he didn't want. He opposed Reagan's efforts to arm the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, some of whom went on to become the people.
The guys who are fighting
now.
us today.
Right. And so, although the lifespan there is pretty short, so I think probably a lot of those guys are dead. But you know, the point is, Biden was the kind of guy who, you know, he didn't even want Obama to kill Osama bin Laden. So this is the kind of quality chief executive we've got.
And as Ken brought up, this has been what is the end game? What is winning there? We've never, I mean, and Ben Boychuk brought up the point of basically George Bush wanted to create, you know, to go biblical. He wanted to create us and them in the image of us. Okay, not in the image of God, but in the image of us. And obviously, Ken,
I would argue that was more his plan with Iraq than in Afghanistan. Look, Afghanistan, we had to go in on September 12th. Everybody in the dark services knew that all these dickheads were getting trained over there. There was no government, and when you have no government, you get Osama bin Laden's with their training centers, right? We knew that. I would suspect that Afghanistan was less than neocons' goal to convert in the Bush administration, as much as it was Iraq, thinking if we can topple these guys. Everybody hates him. He's a dictator. Blah, 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 blah. And look, it was an ambitious plan that failed. Nation building is really, really, really hard. I was rooting for him to go kill the guy, but then we're like, we're going to stay here and rebuild Iraq into a whole new country. It was like, really? But it was ambitious. Had they been able to succeed at that, they might have turned the whole Mideast. I mean, that was the whole concept, was let's get one democratic-ish, doesn't have to be Jeffersonian, as long as it's not, you know, we lop off your heads because we don't like you know, because you pray to the wrong type of the same God as us, type of a democracy. Had they turned Iraq, the whole Mideast might have fallen, because even the countries that we all act are cool and on our side, oh, well, he's a dictator over there in Iraq and in Libya, but our guy's a king. You know, the Saudis who give us all this oil, and the Kuwaitis, they have king.
They don't give it to us, Ken.
Well, you're right, but they allow us to buy it even though we don't need it anymore.
Right.
At least we didn't need it a couple.
So
we're going to get to that in a minute.
So Ben Stein. So I think Ben Boychuk brought up the biggest point, which is I don't think Biden administration, I don't think his intelligence saw this coming. I don't think
they didn't see
or
this
took
coming,
it seriously.
If they didn't see this coming, that is terrifying.
Well, here's the
because
point.
It could not have been more obvious.
Yeah, but see, you're right. It couldn't have been more obvious, but on a different level, that region isn't being honest with our government, right?
I know, but that region is, but we can only deal with it. Okay, here's look. Here's the guy who understood about this. Power flows from the barrel of a gun. And that's how we could have saved the embassy in Kabul and saved Kabul. We have a lot of guns, and we have a whole lot of soldiers. They don't all have to be in public relations. They don't all have to be in LGBTQ training. They don't all have to be in equity and whatever diversity training. Some of them are in the army to fight. So maybe they should be there fighting to defend Kabul and the other major cities. And you ask a very good question. What would victory in Afghanistan look like? It's an extremely good question. A lot different from what's happening now.
It would be the total opposite of what's happening now. We wouldn't be worried about it.
I don't even think talk of victory in Afghanistan is even something that is.
No, it's gone.
This was all how much of a how cleanly could we get out of a retreat? And in a retreat, there's always some guys taking up the back guard on it, right? But I tell you, if my son had volunteered for the U.S. military and they said, "Hey, we're gonna put 4,000 more troops in Afghanistan," I might be telling you to go fuck yourselves.
And
Well,
I
if they're
think
in the army, you're not allowed to go say go. Fuck
I understand
yourself.
you're not allowed to, but what I'm saying is the moral concept of taking Americans to go to fight year 21 in Afghanistan.
They're not there. The concept is
with no end game in sight.
the end
I would've
game
been upset
is
after
inside.
15.
The end game now is being played out.
Yeah.
The
Just to
end
get out
game
without
is
dying.
we
Yeah.
get
That's
out with our tail between our legs,
That's fair.
and as few as possible of our people and the people who befriended our people get their
100%.
heads lopped
and
off.
Ken, and the point Ben brought up before is this is the horror that parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters, when they go to Arlington, have to live with for those that died, is that we're leaving with our tails between our legs. So he's saying what you're saying is you're essentially saying the same things. But on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to That Man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, and this is a great panel tonight. I want to thank everybody that's in the chat. I am reading your chat, and we are in the same boat with you guys. And I want to remind you, please keep downloading our podcast. It is greatly appreciated. Even if you listen to us here, please go and download the podcast. Also, go to Ken's website, Media Action Network, my mother's favorite news aggregate website. And of course, Ben Boychuk from AM Greatness. It's amgreatness.com, American Greatness. You have to pull in the full letters on YouTube. And of course, from Spectator.org, American Spectator, you have to do the same thing on YouTube, put in the full letters.
Right? Yeah,
Yes, every single,
Wow.
I before the show, I was on the phone with Larry Klayman, and he was like, "Are you not getting my notifications?" And I really wasn't. I wasn't ignoring him. And I tried typing in Freedom Watch, which has 60,000 subscribers, and you literally, even after you type in Freedom Watch, he doesn't come up as a suggestion. And if you don't believe in shadow banning, even Breitbart, it put in BRIT before you put in the B. Breitling comes up before Bart.
That's a good, very expensive watch.
Very expensive watch, yes. But at this point, I think Breitbart is a little more known than Breitling to most to regular people. And of course, Ben Stein. The next begging thing we seem to be doing, Ben Boychuk, is begging for oil.
Yeah. So the Wall Street Journal yesterday had a terrific editorial headline: Joe Biden wants OPEC to drill. The White House pleads for more foreign oil. The U.S., not so much. And it turns out, so Jake Sullivan, who's Joe Biden's national security advisor, put out a statement earlier in the week or last week imploring OPEC to pump more oil, which is interesting, because the Biden administration has spent about 6 months doing everything it possibly could to crush U.S. oil production. And so Sullivan in his statement says, higher gasoline costs, if left unchecked, risk harming the ongoing global recovery. The price of crude oil has been higher than it was at the end of 2019, before the onset of the pandemic. While OPEC Plus recently agreed to production increases, these increases will not fully offset previous production cuts that OPEC Plus imposed during the pandemic until well into 2022. At a critical moment in the global recovery, this is simply not enough. And then the journal's editors kind of, you can almost read the sneer here, or the grin on their face. Perhaps Mr. Sullivan missed Monday's UN report that the world will soon be hot as Hades if we keep pumping oil. In a single brief statement, he managed to contradict President Biden's entire energy message as a candidate and as in office. And then they, of course, go on to enumerate all the things that the Biden administration has done since January. Killed Keystone Pipeline, eliminated the oil leasing contracts in Alaska, suspended oil leases on federal land, even after a court ruled that the moratorium was illegal, increased fuel mileage standards for cars, which favors electric vehicles, and invoked the Endangered Species Act as part of a strategy to reduce drilling on private land in the West. No doubt we're missing something.
They're asking, though. They're asking.
So Ben Stein.
Come on.
We went from
this is a strategy that governments haven't fully embraced yet.
Yes, but
maybe if we said, "Hey, kids in Chicago, stop shooting each other in the faces," maybe that would work.
Oh, it was eminently predictable that if they shut down fracking, yes, which was giving us an oil bonanza and making us the leading oil producer in the world, and giving us so much oil that we were exporting oil, that suddenly we would be short of oil. That was eminently predictable. It's astonishing. It's arithmetic. Is this pure idiocy or is this subversion? Someone years ago wrote a book called None Dare Call It Treason. And I don't remember who wrote it. I think it was published by the John Birch Society, who turned out to have been right about a hell of a lot of things. And there's something going on here in which the people in the White House are definitely not pro-American.
No, you raise, I was talking to Ben before the show, and I was talking, Ben, I've never been a huge conspiratorial person, and neither have you been. But this does reek of a globalist sort of agenda to me personally.
This I think is the work of very stupid people who hate America, very stupid people who think that America is a cesspool of racism and that America would be better off defeated. And it's a very scary thing. And I hate to say this, but I think at some point people are just going to say enough is enough, and there's going to be violence.
He capitulated to the hardcore lefties on this. They were all upset at the Indians like they were building an oil line 5 miles away from their reservation. They saw the videos of the fracking thing, and some guy in South Dakota, he poured water in and he lit his water on fire. So, oh my God, is this America? And the Biden administration has capitulated to the far left when it felt that it had to, which is a decent amount of the time.
Ken, with the greatest respect, I don't think it's a question of them being pushed around. I think that the people in that administration are actual subversives.
I think some of them probably are. I think
they're true. I think there's a lot of true believers in this administration.
But I mean, Biden's not an anti-oil guy. Do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%.
He knows what day it is.
Ken, he said he was an anti-oil guy.
I saw that thing.
And here's the thing: I tend to trust people when they say when Iran says death to Israel. I tend to trust Iran when they say death to Israel. So Ben Stein brings up a brilliant word, a brilliant point. And I know I keep saying that. I'm sorry, I sound like a kiss ass. Listen, if my rabbi was teaching me something and I thought it was brilliant, I'd say brilliant, Rabbi. So there you are. Brilliant, Rabbi Stein. But Ben Boychik, there are real subversives and there are real believers, and they're the ones that have power.
Well, Boychik, go ahead. I'm sorry. Thanks. I forgot to interrupt you.
Thank you. No, so yeah, I think that it's not unreasonable to say that the current administration is the third term of the Obama administration. The Obama administration did a lot of harm in propagating regulation because they couldn't get laws passed. So they were able to get regulations and rules passed that made it very difficult, for the oil industry to expand. Now, what's interesting about that, though, is even in the face of those regulations, oil exploration and development did expand during the Obama administration, but it expanded so much faster under 4 years of Trump because Trump came in, and one of the earliest things that they did was they got rid of a lot of those rules that the Obamas put in place. And so now a lot of that stuff is coming back. And this is the trouble with government by executive order and administrative fiat, is that what one administration can do, another administration can certainly undo. And then the next one undoes the progress of the previous one. I really think there are some hardcore, environmentalist true believers in this lot. And I think that they don't understand or they don't care. I think a lot of them do understand to an extent that their preferred policies are going to have economic consequences that are going to be harmful to people, but they seem to believe that you can maybe tax more rich people, or you can
or they just don't care.
No, I'm not entirely sure about that. They don't care about the harm that they do to certain people, but others they might care about, but they don't understand the one law that can never be repealed, which is the law of unintended consequences.
Ben Stein, how long can this country withstand this? I mean, I'm being honest.
I don't think very long, but long enough. I mean, it's long enough for me. I'm 76. It won't harm me very much, but I worry very, very much for my granddaughter. And my wifey said yesterday, and my wifey is a very mild-mannered and wonderful human being, beyond wonderful, saintly. She said, I really feel sad and worried for Coco, our granddaughter. It's really the America she's going to inherit is not going to be a free America. It's not going to be anywhere near as prosperous an America. It's going to be an America in which anti-white racism is going to be the key, and it's very scary.
You know, you raise a great point, because Ben Boychuk, can you please read him the latest poll?
Oh, yes. So this is a beautiful segue. Majority of registered Democratic voters now prefer socialism to capitalism, Fox News poll finds. Wow. A new Fox News poll showed that more Democrats favor socialism over capitalism, in a sharp reversal from just a year and a half ago. The poll, taken between August 7th and 10th, showed that 59% of registered Democratic voters who participated had a positive view of socialism, compared to just 49% who felt that way about capitalism. In February of 2020, when the question was last asked, 50% of Democrats who participated said they had a favorable view of capitalism, with just 40% saying the same about socialism. Of the Republicans polled, by the way, only 67% viewed capitalism favorably, and 8% had a favorable view of socialism, which makes me wonder if they were putting the pollsters on.
Now, something's going on here. And if this is true, the idiocy and lack of knowledge of history of Americans is so terrifying, it just makes my blood run cold. Socialism is so anti-freedom, anti-human, anti-decency. It's just overwhelming. I mean, to read the stories of the countries that are Marxist is to read stories of mass murder, mass rape, mass torture, the whole country being run on the basis of terror. And it's just unbelievable that Americans could have a favorable view of such a
huge
system.
part of this is a generational divide.
Yep.
Because this.
Well, then they don't know anything.
Well, but when we all talk about socialism, we hear this, we hear the socialist countries that had their chance and murdered and raped and killed and starved many people. I suspect that when you ask a 24-year-old what's a good example of socialism, they would say places like Scandinavia.
I disagree with him, Ben Stein. Sorry, Ken. I disagree with you. I would say they're Bernie bros.
You think they think Russia and Venezuela?
Yes, I think Bernie.
They're just stupid and want us all to die.
Yes, I think Bernie bros.
Cuba.
Remember Bernie Sanders, Moscow on the Hudson for his Moscow, I know, kidding. Moscow for his honeymoon. AOC and all these places keep on defending Cuba and Venezuela. So yes, I do believe, Ben Stein, that it might be a generational thing, but this generation, remember, who are the people they idolize? They idolize people like people that have killed cops. Right. Ben Stein.
Well, my alma mater, so to speak, because I taught there, I certainly didn't study there. I'm sure anyone studied there. If you see Santa Cruz, Angela Davis, a major communist, big-time communist, really big-time communist.
And that wasn't
a very, very high. Yeah, exactly. That was a very high position in the faculty of that state-supported, taxpayer-supported university, and she's teaching the people who are her students believe her. They don't know any better. It's just incredible.
Can I try a little history test?
Yeah, please.
Little history test. And Ben, you can't play. And Ben, you can't play.
Well, wait a second. Then who can play?
Judah can play.
I'm not playing. I'm not playing your games.
Look at the pin that is on Ben Boychuk, and tell me, and I'll give you a $2 bill.
I know the answer to this.
I know you know what it is. Everybody over 50 knows what it is.
I want to say from the 50s.
No.
I'm just saying,
everybody over 50.
Tell me what that
has nothing to do with
that pen means. No, people over 50.
Ken, that has
it's a history lesson.
You know what, Ken? I failed the history lesson. So please, Ben Boychuk, Tell me what the
No,
pin
actually,
is.
what you failed to do is pay attention about
We discussed
6
it on the
weeks
show
ago
a
when
long
we
time
discussed
ago.
it.
It's a
Wins-
pin that was passed out during the Ford administration
1977,
called
right?
whip inflation now.
Whip
This was
inflation.
Ford.
No, it would have been around 75.
75, yeah.
No,
76, 75,
No, couldn't have been
76.
at 76 because 76 in 76, that genius Jimmy Carter won the
Oh,
election.
you're right.
Well,
You're
yeah.
right. It would have been
Ford wasn't
75
president.
then. 75
All right,
and a half.
you got your own history lesson wrong. So there you go.
Yeah,
And I
I
should.
was
Whip
off by- I was
inflation
off by a
now.
year.
And the
I
idea,
know,
but
I
the whole
remember
idea,
it very well. I remember
the whole
very,
idea
very,
then
very
was
well.
what?
Well,
It was a
choose- and it's
PR
up
campaign that
to
said
make people
what?
stop, to go into stores and say, we're not going to pay that higher price. It was insane. I was at the event in the East Room of the White House where this thing was unveiled. I just remember I was just
You like, what
falling
the
on the
fuck?
floor laughing.
I mean, how does an individual whip inflation?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
By wearing a button.
Just
Clearly, this is
it
what
was
I'm
just
trying.
plain
This is
stupid.
why I'm wearing the button now,
It's
because
just
I'm
plain-
doing my
it's just
part.
plain stupid, and it was a big mistake. And there's something. It's now you are bringing up history lesson because I served, as you know, Mr. Nixon, and the people there were incredibly, unbelievably smart people. I mean, unbelievably smart people, the smartest people I've ever worked with. And then the Ford people came in, and they were all incredibly nice people. Not one of them was not a nice person, but they knew nothing. It was like
Did you stay on through
from
Ford?
what?
Did you stay on through Ford?
A little bit.
Just about 4 months.
Yeah.
The people who came in with Ford, I should say, couldn't have been nicer, friendly, nice, cheerful, knew nothing, absolutely nothing.
And ask another question. Why only 4 months? This is one of my this is my favorite, one of my favorite Ben Stein stories of all time. And I will, because he must have told me this 16 years ago. We were walking these dogs around Beverly Hills, and people have probably heard this story before quite a few times. And we were talking about Rumsfeld. Sorry, Ben.
Ken is saying he hasn't heard it, but
Yeah.
I was working in a little teeny tiny office, and the phone rang, and it was Rumsfeld. And
so imagine me being you right now, just a normal person, a layman, But go on.
He said it's Don Rumsfeld. Well, my father and Rumsfeld were great pals, and they had worked together great for a long time, traveled all over the country talking about wage and price controls in 1972. Or sorry, might have been 71. Anyway, and my father had told me probably Rumsfeld was his best friend in the whole world. And so the secretary said Don Rumsfeld is on the phone, and I thought, oh, they're having a party for my father or something like that. No, he said, how do you like working at the White House? And I said, I love it. I really like it here. And he said, well, you better look for something else because we're gonna have to let you go. Why? And I said, why? There have been no complaints about my work as far as I'm aware. He said, well, we're just cleaning out all the old Nixon people, and you have gotten the White House communications office to run on your television the farewell speech of Nixon over and over again. And once you have it on that channel, everyone in the White House has to watch it, and it's depressing them. And so that's why we have to let you go. But we will find you something in the bureaucracy. But we're not going to let you start. We'll find you something in the bureaucracy. So
I think that's one of the greatest stories I had ever heard in my life. As we were walking dogs in Beverly Hills, I got that history lesson. And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein, and it is a history lesson. It's a history through a man that has lived and worked through so much of this history. And I'll bring both Ken and obviously Ben Boychuk in on that too, because Ken has helped form Fox News, and it's an incredible thing that you did. It's an incredible journey that you did. And of course, Ben,
the Black Room. Wow.
The Black Room on the 23rd floor of the very feng shui room. And of course, Ben Boychuk from AM Greatness. But I want to remind everybody to please keep downloading those episodes. Thank you, Jerry Mungo, in the chat room for giving us the Yankee score. It's greatly appreciated, I guess. They're playing the Field of Dreams game, which it's so exciting to watch professional sports these days. I'm glad Jerry from Rego Park is watching it. And of course, Ben Boychuk. What?
I used to live in Rego Park. We called it Forest Hills, though. Go Park.
And of course, Ben Boychuk from AM Greatness. And I remind everybody to get Ben's emails, benstein.substack.com. And on to the next thing. And Ben Stein, remember before the show, I gave you a little bit of a teaser of something fairly amazing that Ben Boychuk and I, none of us knew. But who was the first? Nobody in the chat knows this either. Who was the first person that got the first of Hunter Biden's 3 laptops?
First person in America?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting caveat. Okay.
No. The first person, I thought it was you, Ken.
Well,
It depends on what the question is.
Okay, so how would you phrase the question, jackass?
I'm just trying to be particular. You just lost out on your $2 and you're all upset because you don't know about
So I don't get it.
So anyway,
what he's alluding to is that before Hunter Biden's laptop was released by the New York Post, that I had actually talked to and gotten some of the information off of that laptop from the Apple computer guy, the guy with the little Scottish thing, because he had sent it out to Rudy, he'd sent it out to a number of people, and everybody was like blowing him off, and he was like, what do I do? He got me involved, and then but shortly after that, the Post came out with it. I got some of that into some Fox people, so
But Ken got it first, but that's not the story tonight. That is a cool story, though. But the story tonight is Hunter's 3rd laptop, Ben Boychuk.
Hunter Biden has a problem with whores and Russian drug dealers.
That's laptops.
And laptops. That's the story. So
what's the problem?
How can you have a problem with Russian whores?
Well, whores and Russian drug dealers are not necessarily the same.
Okay.
So this is I hate this story, and so I'm just going to read what Breitbart reported, and they're quoting from the Daily Mail. But I really hate this story. Hunter Biden, son of Joe, claimed during I hate this, post-coital. And now I know I butchered the pronunciation because this is such a disgusting story.
Okay.
Post-coital conversation with a woman identified by the Daily Mail as a prostitute, that Russian drug dealers stole his laptop, not the one abandoned to a Delaware computer repair shop, during a Vegas bender where he nearly drowned in a hotel hot tub, according to footage unearthed by the tabloid. And yes, there is video, and no, we're not going to show it. The Daily Mail report, it's not very good video. They blur everything. It's terrible.
It's like watching Asian porn, but go on. Not that I know anything about that.
What is wrong with you? The Daily Mail reports
that was perfect.
The alleged incident would mean Hunter lost a total of 3 computers, the first abandoned at a Delaware computer store and the second seized by federal agents, each likely to hold sensitive information on President Joe Biden and the embarrassing pictures, videos, and communications of his son. The 3rd laptop still appears to be missing and was taken by Russian drug dealers after they partied with Hunter in Vegas. He told a prostitute in a conversation caught on camera because the guy can't help himself.
So Ben Stein,
wait.
Ben Stein,
what's on these computers? I want to know what
him
having sex with whores.
Him having sex.
Well, I don't think that's. I mean,
him arranging for his dad to help him out.
Yes, in a brief moment of lucidity, as the Daily Mail goes on to report and Breitbart recounts, in a brief moment of lucidity with this prostitute, he says. So apparently, this video was taken that came out was taken in like 2019.
During the presidential campaign.
Yeah, he basically says, there's a lot of stuff of me doing stuff on those videos, and my dad's running for president, and I don't know, I could probably get blackmailed for this because the guy is a moron.
So Ben, basically everything, as somebody brought up in chat, everything they accused Trump of.
Yeah,
Joe Biden's son, and Ben. Also, there was intricate math and gas Burisma. How Hunter was going to save Burisma with his extreme skills on the laptop. That's also, I'm kidding around, of course, Ben. But
this is just amazing.
Talk about a national security risk, Ben Stein.
What on earth is going on here? I mean, this country is really in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble.
And Ben, the biggest problem is it's not being reported. If you went, as
It's
we've
not being
discussed,
reported anywhere.
well, other than
I tell you, who stepped forward a lot during this is the Daily Mail. I mean,
But they're always good. They're always good.
well, I mean, the British guy doesn't like us to own any guns. Funny.
Oh,
that
really? Is that true? Wow. I didn't know.
What's his name? Well, he made his whole show.
he,
on
no, what's his name? Pierce Morgan.
Piers Morgan. Like,
Piers
he had a whole
Morgan.
show. He had a whole show devoted.
He's no longer the editor, though, of the Daily Mail, I believe.
We'd like you Americans not to have guns anymore, please. Yeah, okay. Surprise, surprise.
Ben Boyd, but Ben Stein, can I get back to you as far as history? And you talking to wifey the other night and saying how scared she is for Coco. Do you ever remember us being in this type of quagmire of
I don't remember ever having such stupid people running the country government. I don't remember that at all.
You don't remember Jimmy Carter?
Not as of course I remember Jimmy Carter. Not as bad as this. Jimmy Carter was a fool and a stupendous liar, but not like Biden. Not as bad as Biden and his cronies.
Do you think people? I mean, I want to, because you know quite a few people that you're still friends with on the left, even people that abused your ex-boss, Richard Nixon. Do you think they are just are willing to live in a state of disbelief, or do they just not care? Or
no, they don't like America. I mean, I know someone extremely close to me is a big time leftist, very, very, very close to me, and she really does not like America or think America is a great country, and she believes America's racism has been so bad that America should be severely punished on the world stage and at home, and that Americans in general are incurably racist. And something drastic is going to have to happen to America. This is a woman who went to a very, very, very prestigious college. Supposedly, I don't think any woman's college is worth much, but she went to one.
Wait, what'd you say?
Oh, he said Radcliffe without saying it.
No, it wasn't Radcliffe.
Okay, all right.
But anyway, I can't. The people on the left really don't love America.
So I want to ask you a question, Ken LaCourte. You got slandered by the New York Times for BS, for really nothing you did. You didn't feel a story was reportable. One little story. There's obviously never going to be this on the left of the Washington Post. The New York Times is never going to call out for the people that are reporting on these stories. And it's sort of, you got harmed, you had to defend yourself. And I don't mean physically harmed, but it does hurt you when you get slandered by the New York Times.
The New York Times did that to me too, over my story, over my work on the movie Expelled. I mean, literally, because I believe in God, because I believe that God created the heavens and the earth, I was viciously attacked on the front page of the New York Times.
Well, Nazis.
And I was a columnist for the New York Times at the same time.
I was only on the front page of the business section.
There you are.
But in fairness, I was 2/3 of the front page with a picture of my face, half black and half white. I'd say I guess I diverge a little bit from you guys. Is when it comes to the psychology of our opponents. I'll never forget the opening of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And
Great book.
It's wonderful. Book. It's the best book on business and human psychology.
It's the only book besides books of statistics in Warren Buffett's office. The only one.
Interesting. So he opens up with a letter and it's written about this guy, and he's like, well, the police are outside. If they only knew the soft, gentle hearted of me. And it's this long letter by this guy. And the reveal at the end is this is Machine Gun Kelly after he killed a couple cops, and the cops were surrounding his apartment before they came and killed him or whatever they did. And the moral was, if Machine Gun Kelly could have such a distorted view of himself, that to understand the psychology of your opponents, I think it's a mistake to say and to think they hate America. Now, they may, and that I don't think you're all that far off. I actually think that in their minds, and to understand and to persuade them to our side or to beat them, right? You can either convince people to come to your side, or you can eliminate their power, whether it's in actual warfare, you kill them till they're dead, whether it's in political warfare, sometimes you convert them or you just make them a minority. I think that we need to better understand where they're coming from, because they believe, for instance, when they're coming out against all oil drilling in America, they don't think that they're harming people. They think that they are saving the lungs of little babies. And they think that they are stopping global warming, which is going to kill their little Coco grandchild. I mean, we need to get, I think, when to be effective purveyors of our ideals, I think we need to get a little bit clearer picture of the heads of our opponents. I don't want to call them enemies because they're Americans, even if they're fucked up and stupid. They're Americans. And so I'm a big believer in, I think it's Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice what stupidity can explain.
Ben, he raises an interesting point, but I do think people like George Soros and the people that are doing the defund the police movement and the people from the Black Lives Matter movement, I do believe they are strictly about malice. I do believe they are strictly about harm. And sadly, they've been adopted by many of the big platforms in the Democrat Party. I understand what Ken's saying, and I think it's a very good point. But Ben Stein, I do believe that they want the destruction of our country.
I think so too. Well, they want the destruction of it as we know it. I mean, they want something like a Bolshevist America. I mean, right after the coup in Moscow or St. Petersburg, Lenin said, now let us go about building the socialist Russia. And that meant that about 40 million people lost their lives. And I have the feeling that these people would not be sad if 40 million Americans lost their lives to give us a non-racist America.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Boychuk does bring up a good point. And I understand people talking about the ideologues. We're not talking, there's a difference between leftists and liberals, Ben Boychuk. The ideologues of yesteryear are no longer they're dangerous, Ben Boychuk.
So I'll save for maybe next week a story that I really do want to tell about the quarrels that I've been having over the past few weeks with a former professor of mine. But instead, I would mention the frequent conversations that I have with my restaurant friends up here on my mountain at this, in this wonderful place. And these are some of my closest friends in the world, and they are quite to the left of me, and they understand where I am, and I endeavor to understand where they are. They don't hate America. They want an America for their kids that is better than what we had, but they worry too. And my chef friend in particular just is disgusted by the excesses of the woke left. But at the same time, we are never going to agree on certain things. And we're not going to agree on certain policies. We're not even going to agree on the premises for certain policies. And what I worry about and what I try to do with my friends is I try to find the thing that has preoccupied my mind for 10 years now, at least, is the loss of a common civic vocabulary. And what I try to do with my friends is I try to find some areas of agreement where at least we can agree on what certain words mean. And if we can do that, then we might avoid the sort of cataclysm that Ben Stein alluded to a moment ago. But I don't know.
Ben, let's go to Ben Stein as we close up the show. Ben, do you see there being that eventuality? Do you think we could get, are we too past the point? Are we past the point of no return?
No, not at all. This country has gotten through worse, and I think we can get through this too. I think I have a very wonderful friend named Dr. Ko, and he says the answer is love. And And I do think there's something to loving your enemies. I have no wish to kill people who differ from me, and but I just think we have to persevere in doing what we think is right. And if America changes for the worse, which it is doing very sharply now, we just have to keep trying our best. And I'm sure that my son, who's helping out on this show, will try his best, and I'm sure he will train his daughter to do her best.
Brilliantly said, and we are running out of time. And I want to thank the panel, the amazing panel tonight, for this historical our history lesson. Thank you, Ken LaCourte, for always putting me on the spot. You're a wonderful gem of a human. I asked you beforehand if I could put you on the spot. Thank you. Thank you kindly for the heads up. And you're such a kind individual, Ken. And I want to thank everybody humbly in the YouTube chat. I do love reading your stuff. I want to thank Rock Breath for sending me a really cool snapshot during the show of the four of us on his iPhone. He is in Buffalo. Get well, Rock. You're doing great. He's RVing across America. We love you, Rock. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Remind everybody to please download the episodes, even if you listen to us here. It means the world to us. You could download it on any streaming site. So if you hate Apple, you could go to Stitcher. If you hate Stitcher, you could go to iHeartRadio. If you really hate iHeartRadio, you could go to
Spotify.
There you are. And 8-10 others, I promise. And people, in the Philippines are coming to us. It's great. We're like going up the rankings, Philippines, Canada, and America. So we appreciate it greatly. Ben Stein's newsletter, benstein.substack.com. You could find Ken LaCourte, Media Action Network, where he punches back. Yes, Ken.
Yes.
Oh, he's agreeing with that.
He's agreeing.
Yeah,
We punch back, Media Action Network. And of course, you can find managing editor of AM Greatness, who will be doing a piece on this show and interviewing Ben for that. AM Greatness. I beg everybody to go to AM Greatness. They have some of the most fantastic writers like Julie Kelly, who's the only reporter in America that's telling the true story of what happened at the Capitol. Julie Kelly, follow her, amgreatness.com, and throw them a few dollars. So it's American Greatness, American Spectator, spectator.org, where you can read Ben's daily diaries, and incredible writers there too. American Spectator has been around for ages, and we need to keep them around for ages more. So throw a few shekels their way, and you can find Ben also Newsmax sometimes, and being interviewed on the Mock and Rob show. You could stream that or go to their website and find Ben's interview. It is fantastic. We did it after the show last night. Ben Stein, we thank you so much. You are America's humble servant. Please, sir, take us out.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, 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 hallelujah. His truth is marching on.